Welcome to another episode of Money for Nothing, the podcast about music and capitalism. I'm Saxon Baird. I'm with Sam Backer as always. We're going to start off talking about, I guess we're talking about Drake. We're talking about how you play with fire, in this case a rapper named Kendrick Lamar who's from South Central and has gang ties, and people shoot at your house, and that's probably something you should think about before you drop a diss track. What I'm referring to is that Drake is suing now UMG. I mean, he's been suing. This isn't like super new news, but he's suing UMG essentially for defamation and like endangering his well-being. It's a defamatory case, federal lawsuit, and he's kind of like, the case is kind of like building on. He dropped the last case, which was against Spotify, and Drake's been the detective lately. Apparently, So to give you guys a little background here.
Let's tell them what we're talking about generally.
This
folks, you may remember a little song called "Not Like Us." You may remember a little man called Drake. You may remember a little rap beef from last year. That's what we're talking about. The fallout continues.
Yeah, and basically the fallout continues. Drake basically claimed that Spotify artificially inflated Not Like Us because Spotify cares about who wins this rap battle. But he ended up dropping that case, and in this new case against UMG, he's actually claiming that UMG was involved in this artificial inflation of basically offering like cheaper royalties or something if they would inflate it. And then he was also attacking, this case is also attacking like the CEO structure of UMG, saying that like certain bonuses that these CEOs get are like dependent on like the revenue streams of like whatever they head up. So he was like singling out the fact that like whoever in UMG heads up Interscope, that apparently he was behind this artificial inflation. But the main thing is that he's claiming that Universal Music essentially encouraged this sort of defamation of his by calling him a pedophile, and then as a result endangered his livelihood and his family's livelihood.
His livelihood, his family's livelihood, and the livelihood of all the children at his house. But
wait, let me ask you a question before we jump into this.
Sure.
If this beef didn't happen and Kendrick didn't destroy Drake, does Kendrick get the Super Bowl halftime show?
No.
Because
maybe eventually.
Because like we've talked about this before. I think we talked about it even in
He doesn't have quite enough hits by himself.
Well, this is what I was going to say, is that you have like in recent memory, Rihanna, top 10 selling artist of all time. I've known. Yeah.
Endless hits. Rihanna's got, if you do like a Rihanna, which I don't think exists because look back to our album, The Life and Death of the Greatest Hits. Our podcast, our episode. If you look back to our episode, The Life and Death of the Greatest Hits, but like, if you put like the Rihanna Greatest Hits, including songs where she's just like a featured vocalist, it is a absolutely stellar, like, if your car still has a CD player, put it all together, burn that thing, put it in your car. It's like the Rihanna's Greatest Hits 18-track record is like, it's perfect.
You do have to make sure you're getting those features in there, because if you remove the features, it becomes a little less strong.
No. You want the Calvin Harris track. You know,
she's the queen of features for sure. So yeah, because the reason why I ask is if you look at like who's like had it, like Usher, Rihanna, this like weird West Coast like mishmash that because it was the LA Super Bowl, like Dre, Snoop, Mary J. Blige. I guess Kendrick was there.
For some reason, Eminem.
Yeah. Oh, The Weeknd. That's okay. Weeknd, Shakira, Jennifer Lopez with Bad Bunny featuring. Don't remember that one. Maroon 5.
I can tell you this from that one. I remember that one. Everyone looked great. The Shakira J-Lo Bad Bunny was like impeccable visuals.
Right, but I don't know. I just find like, you know, I feel like Kendrick weirdly like this beef which he did not start. Well, I mean, he didn't really start it. I mean, like he kind of started, but which Kendrick Lamar didn't.
He started it.
I mean, but he didn't directly start it. Kendrick Lamar didn't like direct this specific beef. I mean, he's been talking shit for a while and like doing subversive like impersonations of like Drake like on his tracks and stuff like that. But
he wanted this.
Yeah, he did want it. But what's wild is that it kind of, like I feel like it like raised his star status.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. After a record that is like after Mr. Morales and the Big Steppers, which is like not a fun record to listen to.
It's like a poetry album.
It's amazing, but it's not like not enjoyable. Like
yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
No, I don't think he gets the Super Bowl performance. I mean, like this is the biggest hit of his career.
Yeah.
And it's like he's like the people's champ, and it was just crazy to watch. Like
the
clip of the Grammys of just like everyone getting together to defame Drake. All the glitterati, all the elites of the music industry just coming around to call Drake the most dominant figure in rap music perhaps
as we've covered,
ever.
Yeah.
In terms of like long-term chart dominance, to call him a pedophile. And
nobody likes him. Everybody will collaborate with him because it means money, but nobody actually likes him.
The thing is, I think that's interesting about this, and the reason why I kind of, I think, pushed you to talk about this, is that like the internet, the world at large has just like mocked Drake mercilessly for these lawsuits, right? Like, just they're like, you lost really, really hard in the most public way possible, and now you're like suing because like you are
because you've never taken an L.
Because you're suing because you're a sore loser.
You're a sore loser. But the funny thing is
that every single thing that he says in this lawsuit, I am convinced is true, or most of the accusations in it are probably or certainly true. I am extremely convinced by the like music biz takedown part of this, and it's actually this wild thing where like one of the industry's biggest stars, who has 100% benefited from every single tactic that he is now accusing UMG of employing against him. Definitely. Like definitely, if not worse. But the point is that he is, with a real knowledge and precision of how these labels work, accusing them of kind of doing business as usual, and it is fascinating.
Yeah. So specifically, what we're talking about here is that, I mean, one, UMG does defend itself in saying something to the effect of, I'm like paraphrasing, but if you read the articles, it basically says Drake's been talking shit basically for the last 20 years, and we promoted that. So why is this different if we promote somebody else, some other rapper talking shit on him? That's basically what they said. But he's also, like, I mean, I can find the quote. I mean, it's pretty funny actually. Like,
which is like fair play. That's fair. It's really fair. That's a good point.
Yeah. Which I don't have the quote in front of me, but it's pretty great. But the interesting thing though that you're kind of talking about is what, like the payola, the like siloed like CEOs who like performance. So they're yeah.
What I'm talking about is there's a couple of accusations. I actually read through the lawsuit in like prime Money for Nothing fashion, or read through the lawsuit.
We read lawsuits.
Like, my eyes. We read like Money for Nothing. We actually read the court filings. And until my eyes started glazing over, which is like page 65, 70. I got and there's a couple of claims here that are fascinating. Some of them are ridiculous. Like, I'm very sorry that people shot Drake's friend. And there's some like pretty gruesome stuff of like Drake having to like hold a tourniquet over his boy like while the ambulance comes in the lawsuit.
Finally, Drake's got some hood cred. Wow, good job, bro.
They losing that hood cred potentially. They accuse Kendrick of, when they say he's not a colleague, he's a colonizer. They claim that line is about his Judaism, his Jewish heritage, which seems weak to me. Now, look, I believe that people said some heinous anti-Semitic stuff about Drake in the wake of the song, and I do not defend that. But I also don't think that line is about Jewish colonial practices.
As a representative of all Jewish people on Money for Nothing, how do you feel about this?
Yeah. Yeah, as the Jewish representative on Money for Nothing, I can speak for all Jews when I say that literally none of the many Jews I talked to who took like a bookish, eager, enthusiastic approach to this rap beef and discussed it in great detail, never heard that one come up as like, oh man, that was a little anti-Semitic. And we're like, because you run into some anti-Semitism sometimes, and like that wasn't it. So for me, it was three things that really stuck out. And there is this fascinating thing where like this track really does call him a pedophile, and like UMG really is promoting it. They don't do it in double entendres. They say like, I hear you like him young, Drake. You're trying to strike a pose is probably a minor. Like, no, they call him a pedophile directly. Like, it's not like, oh, it's poetic. He's pretty direct.
Oh, it's poetic.
It.
Yeah.
It's pretty direct.
Which is the usual response from like the major label. Oh, it's poetic.
So there's a couple different points in this lawsuit. There's a structural points, and then there are explicit points. And the structural points I'm less clear about, but in some ways are more interesting. And the explicit points are things that are just like, it's cool to see these practices that like we know happen, like discussed so explicitly.
Right.
So like, one is false streams, right? That's maybe the most basic one. And like, yeah, there are click farms. 100 like stream farms, 100%.
Next question is Spotify like working with the major labels to artificially inflate certain songs?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, there's two ways to think about this. There is this funny thing, and we've talked about this a long time ago on like episode 4, which like I guess you can go back and listen to it, where their episode about Tekashi 6ix9ine. Right. There's this funny thing where like, same thing with radio plays. Like we talk about radio plays as if they're like a reflection of consumer behavior in a kind of consumer democracy standpoint, where like the people decide what's on the radio, and then what's on the radio is somehow like reflective of the demands and desires and interests of the American people in like a quasi-democratic fashion. But like people don't decide what's on the radio except in call-in shows. Radio people decide what's on the radio. So there's this mediating factor, and there's a bunch of like, it's like, what percentage of radio is Clear Channel? I mean, they've got a different name now, whatever they're called. And so like, it's like polling corporate executives about their favorite rap songs a little bit. And Spotify is kind of similar. It's like, is Spotify engaged in artificially boosting song numbers? And there's a couple ways to do that, right? One, the most egregious way is Spotify just fakes the numbers, which Drake doesn't quite accuse, and I don't think that's likely. Two is Spotify looks the other way when people 100% buy bot farms that inflate numbers. And like, yeah, that probably occurs. And I imagine, I would be surprised if there's not a certain degree of like flexible enforcement on that issue. And the third, and this is like the most obvious one, and the one where like these accusations are like, of course that's true. Spotify has algorithms that when your album finishes or when you play X, Y, or Z radio, which like a lot of people do. And like I can't like reiterate this enough. Like if you're listening to this podcast, you probably don't just like throw on XYZ radio all the time, but there's a big section of the population like that is a major way that they consume music, and Spotify determines what gets played there. So of course Spotify can artificially inflate a song. They just play it more often. They play it instead of like, I don't know, like the new Conway the Machine or something. And like no one notices because they're just listening to like ribbity rap radio. And like
and also to be clear, like Drake has benefited from this.
Yes.
Like how many like rap pop like playlist and like does Drake appear on Spotify? Like fucking all of them.
When Scorpion, a bad record. Scorpion is a bad record. I think, look, sidebar, I think that all of this is our fault, our being the listeners, because Drake made Scorpion, which was a bad record, and then he made like two, what?
I thought it was good.
No, and then he made like 2 or 3 interesting records that like everyone didn't like that much. Like More Life is a cool record. That record where he made a dance record was a cool record. Like, look, if everyone had just said that Drake House record was as good as it clearly was, none of this would have happened. So you owe him an apology. That said, when Scorpion, a bad record, was released, Drake was the cover of every single major Spotify playlist, including gospel. Like, of course he's benefited from this. That's why everyone isn't taking these lawsuits seriously, because it's like the person who it's like whatever the reverse of The Boy Who Cried Wolf is.
Yeah. Or like, is it like the Old Testament thing, like don't look a gift horse in the mouth? Or is that just like just some random saying that
I think that's a random saying. I mean, that's about the Trojan War. But also gift horses. But anyway, the point is that it's the most annoying possible person to complain about this, but it doesn't mean it's wrong.
Well, okay, so
that's
like,
one.
Right. And then okay, yeah, 1.
2 is just outright payola. And
right.
It was incredible. They cite a specific Funkmaster Flex tweet, which I just like, the joy I saw of them being like, here's how much payola costs. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. What's that source? And they're like, Funkmaster Flex, December 11th, 2024, Twitter. And so, like, the people, like, I just want everyone to know that funk still kills in footnote format too.
Wow, he's just like, this is what.
So yeah, like payola, and like sure, I fully believe that like payola exists and occurs. Next question. Right. But like, it's cool to be like Drake saying like, hey guys, payola, it's real.
Yeah.
I should know. And then, right, so the third and I think most interesting one of these accusations is his accusation that they whitelisted it.
Right.
Which
explain what that is.
Means that so normally UMG doesn't let anyone use a song online, or they ask to pay for it, or they issue take it down orders. But Drake is saying that UMG, when this song was going viral, whitelisted it, so allowed basically anyone to use this track in videos. Has like, he's got like a list of like YouTubers, major YouTubers with YouTube shows that have been played millions and millions of times, and he was like, normally you would ask them to pay for that and so they wouldn't use the song, but you were like, everyone used this song, which is calling me a pedophile. So they all used the song that called me a pedophile, and then everyone heard the song that called me a pedophile, which like at one level is just like accusing them of canny marketing, but it's really is a really interesting approach to like when these labels are willing to selectively work enforcement, basically, like he was like, they stopped enforcing copyright on this song for a hot minute so that it would go huge, which is a really interesting like move for them to do, because it's like short-term benefits versus long-term benefits, and the long-term benefit is this like broader like machination stuff.
Listen, Lucian Grange heard that mustard beat and was like, whitelist it. That's what happened. And I hope that he takes a stand and he says that. They're like, what do you say to these allegations? And Lucian Grange leans close to the mic and goes, did you hear that mustard beat?
It is important. I mean, Saxon, when you first heard that beat, you were unsure until you heard it with bass.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, unfortunately, I think I heard it through like an iPhone speaker on bad Wi-Fi. I was like, oh, I got back to the States essentially, and
in its natural habitat.
Rattling someone's car in Los Angeles, and I was like, yes.
But so basically he claims, and this is interesting, that Drake is about to renegotiate his contract with UMG.
That's another one.
And this is where you get to stuff. I don't know if this is true, and I'm really interested to hear your take on this, Saxon, because I can't, like, this might be true, it might not be true. Basically, Drake says he's about to renegotiate his contract with UMG, so it's in UMG's interest for everyone to think he's a pedophile. And the flip side is that they've got a Kendrick just left TDE, or like an album ago, Top Dog Entertainment, which is the long time kind of indie label that he came up with the rest of Black Hippie, SZA, etc. And they've got some sort of short-term deal with Kendrick.
I think it's like a one-album deal or something like that. Yeah.
Basically, he's saying that this is in their interest to demonstrate to Kendrick their ability to make everyone in America and ideally the world listen to this truly excellent piece of recorded music, and at the same time bargain down Drake so that when he re-signs his deal, it will be less favorable.
The bargaining down Drake thing makes like no sense to me, but I think the let's throw some weight behind Kendrick. Side note, these CEOs do work in the music industry, so I would assume they heard Not Like Us and said, this is a better diss track. But and so, you know, I could definitely see them saying like, let's throw some weight behind Kendrick here because we want to make good with him and like be able to like release his next album, you know, because they were on a short-term contract. That makes more sense to me than them trying to like talk down Drake. Like, yeah,
especially considering the fact that like it's possible, and this is going to be interesting. Like, this is the flip side of the catalog, right? Catalog.
So I don't know how you would prove that in court. Also, sorry, but anyways, go ahead. Yeah.
No, but it's kind of interesting. Catalog music. Well, the point is, the other reason is they may have like permanently damaged. Like this diss track may have permanently damaged Drake, and I was
for a
saying
long
that,
time.
like, you know, we've talked in the long term, and it's like, you know, we've talked about, you know, the increasing importance of catalog music, right? Music that's over like 18 months old, because in the past everyone bought the Baha Man's record and then they played it, that one song, and then it was over. Everyone owned it. But now it's like Who Let the Dog Out produces a steady dogs. Excuse me, not Who Let the Dog. The singular dog. Woof. Who Let the Dogs Out produces like a steady stream of income. And
is that what your wife yells at you when you let the dog out? Who let the dog out again?
So dumb. but like there is a question though of like in an environment where like catalog sales are really important. Like if someone does something bad later, or similarly gets called a pedophile in front of all of his friends and the rest of America, like does it like depress the long-term economic value of the Drake catalog?
Right. I mean, I think that's not in the interest of UMG or like any major label, and that's why I don't think it doesn't make any sense that they would try to pit these. I mean, maybe they were thinking in the short term, but it doesn't make any sense why they would like purposely do something that could possibly lead to the devaluing of Drake's catalog, particularly when we look at like where they're making where they're looking towards in the future of like where they're going to be making their revenue, and like that catalog or that archive of that huge archive of catalogs that they have, they're really holding on to as something that could be really important in the long term. So that doesn't make any sense because that doesn't make any sense to me. And I think that you could take the example of, I don't know what R. Kelly's like, what label he was on or whatever, but clearly like no one's out there trying to sell R. Kelly's catalog right now because of his legal situation.
A bad, legal situation. His sex.
I don't know I don't know if he was like actually been accused and in jail.
When you're found guilty,
is he in guilty? Okay, he's been guilty. Okay, yeah. Sorry. Oh yeah. We are talking about defamation. Okay, yeah, but because he's in jail for like horrific sex crimes. So yeah, like that's not in the interest of UMG or major labels or like whoever has his catalog or himself. Like it makes no sense to me. Unless UMG is like trying to actually purchase the catalog. But this seems like a real tinfoil. I mean, that's a long shot. That's like a Hail Mary of like, if we drop this diss track, people will think he's a pedophile. He'll get investigated. His like, like what? Like I don't know. Like that just seems like such a. But also, just side note, culturally, like if you got to defend it, maybe you are. It's
not a good look.
It's not a good look.
It is very difficult to convince. Once someone has, it's very hard to convince people that you are not a pedophile, because saying I'm not a pedophile makes people be like,
why do you need to say that? Right. Anyways, sign her up and continue.
No. But so I guess there's a couple ways to read this, and maybe like this we can wrap it up here. Is like, and so like one is that they don't think this actually depresses catalog sales that much in the long term. Like clearly this has impacted Drake's future earnings. There's no way it hasn't. But maybe from a record label perspective, they're like, look, he was already on the downswing of the career. This is not going to majorly impact Hotline Bling. And maybe like the streaming revenue of Hotline Bling, and maybe we can get him. Maybe this like we can get him for a couple $1 million less. Insane. The flip side is that it is this funny thing, right? Which is that this is a zero-sum win. It was zero-sum situation a little bit, especially once the beef was over and they're just like they let him do his. You think his label wasn't involved in Pop Out and Show Him, the Victory concert that was like live streamed on Apple TV or whatever it was live streamed on, that where they played that song like 7 times. The like there is a funny thing, like once it was clear who won, but not like us just kept getting bigger. There is a funny thing where like they're choosing between two of their artists, in that by promoting the song of one, it's calling the other one a pedophile. And I mean, we were before we started the podcast, we were talking about sports, and you said something like that management will look for a championship this season, and like it's worth it to do that over the future.
Yeah, like rings are forever or whatever.
Thing,
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, so are Song of the Year Grammys. Like, that's a big win. And to say, like, look, it maybe gives us some insight into, like, catalog streams are important, but, like, they're interested in Song of the Year wins. They're interested in having the biggest hit. And they're interested in, like, and there's ripple effects, right? UMG gets to strut into their investor meetings being like, yeah, once again, we had, like... Right, Chapel and Sabrina and Not Like Us. Like, we can't miss.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I hear that. Yeah, I mean that's an interesting take. I mean, like I don't know if they're. Yeah, I don't know. I think I think they probably were just probably the truth of it is, if I had to like guess, is that they just got really excited about two of their biggest stars beefing and that it was making headlines and accumulating streams, and they were like, let's roll this, and they didn't think about it in the long term. But I want to add one more thing before we wrap up this conversation about this lawsuit. I think the thing that is interesting also is that it's interesting that Drake is doing this in court and using the lyrics of the rap song to essentially prove this defamation in light of like Young Thug and other rappers, like, and that whole thing coming back about how basically like, Young Thug was
using lyrics for Rico.
Using Enrico. So to be clear, like, the prosecutors of the Young Thug case were using like his rap lyrics to prosecute him for crimes, using the lyrics as proof or as like evidence in evidence that's of truth. That's right. And then you just obviously, like, I don't need to like explain like this to like most of our listeners, but obviously like hip hop for its entirety of existence has like struggled against censorship in regards to its lyrical content and
police repression
completely. And then fucking like Drake comes out and he's basically like, the thing is that like if he won this, and let's say he won like a lot, like let's say, I mean, I don't know what they're suing him for, but I mean 60 million isn't like a drop in the bucket, I think that's, or some whatever, but like that's essentially like going to now then turn around, regardless of whatever shady practices that like the music industry does or that the major labels do, they're going to turn around and next time there is a rap beef, or next time like somebody like Kendrick drops a lyric or somebody else drops a lyric that could be potentially called out as defamation, and like this is, and say like Drake wins this case, they're going to second guess this, and there you go, what do you have? Censorship. And so it's like, it's crazy. So
yeah, especially in a legal environment where like our president is using defamation law and winning, or at least getting people to
and it's
settle.
just like, and we, right.
That's a really
and
good
we usually
point,
don't like veer into this kind of stuff, but I mean, it just makes you like just dislike Drake like so much more, you know what I mean? And then you're like, well, like, it's like,
so the internet
like,
was
it's
right.
like, do you have like no self-awareness about like the like genre of music in which like you've risen to fame under, and now you're essentially like participating in a case which could actually like also censor you and your ability to like talk shit on other rappers, like what? Because it's just like there's just no foresight in any of this, and it's like it's just idiotic. I'm sorry, but yeah,
I can't imagine makes UMG want to keep working.
Yeah, exactly. That's another thing. It's like, I mean, I do think that like he's probably at a point now where like whatever, he can just be like his own independent empire, or like whatever, even if it is on the downslope of his career. Like he could probably hire the people that could like manage his catalog and like continue to promote him and all that stuff. But like, yeah, it's just like no foresight in any of this, and I hope he fucking loses.
But on the flip side, like you can. I mean, there's deals and there's deals, right? Like you can.
I think that's what
say like, of course he can manage his own catalog, but like. When is Drake going to get a Super Bowl?
Right. Yeah. Well, no, and I think that's actually probably more accurate of what's happening here. Is I think this is part of the new contract negotiation.
Yeah.
And like Drake is probably actually not really actually looking to like take this to court. He's probably looking for like a payout, and then he wants leverage when he sits down at the table and starts to like hash out that contract with whoever it is, even if it's not UMG, it's someone else. He's like, don't fuck with me because like what I did over to UMG.
Should have rapped. I mean, here's the thing. He rapped pretty well in that beef. He was winning until just like a total KO.
Knockout, a knockout. Why did I go out? Hey, hey. Knockout, a knockout. Wrists I fixed to mistake. Knockout, a knockout. Incredible.
All right, for the second half of this episode, we're going to take a look at the Grammys.
We never get to do that.
Obviously, they just happened, and Album of the Year, Cowboy Carter by Beyonce.
Album of the Year and Country Album of the Year.
And Country Album of the Year. Yeah, so We're gonna just go through the Grammys and just kind of riff a little bit. And Sam pays more attention to the Grammys. I honestly don't pay attention to the Grammys at all, really. I mean, I'll look at the list and then go on my day. But already in our brief discussion, like not recording, Sam has piqued my interest in discussing the Grammys. So
he's gonna let me have this one, ladies and gentlemen.
There was a lot. In some ways, there was a lot of a very diverse and heavy field for Album of the Year nominees. And I think pretty much anyone could have won. It was kind of like, as it should be, I guess, a total encapsulation of the music ecosystem. But like New Blue Sun by Andre 3000 being nominated for Album of the Year, it feels like a total outlier, but super interesting and like good for them, I guess. As I said, Cowboy Carter by Beyonce, Sabrina Carpenter's Short and Sweet, Brat by Charlie XCX, Jacob Collier, Jesse Volume 4, Hit Me Hard and Soft, Billie Eilish, the Chapel Roan and the Chapel Roan album, and then Tortured Poets Department, because you can't have an Album of the Year without Taylor Swift being in it. but what is interesting is the fact that it does in some ways, at least in my opinion, like comparing it to what else was on there. I think the things that are interesting is that it did feel like a little bit of like possibly a political statement. But what's most interesting is that you take Beyonce and she does a complete genre turn, and then she wins Album of the Year.
Yeah, no, it's a funny thing. I mean, like, look, Beyonce deserves to have won Album of the Year, and this is a fun, again, the same way that we were talking the last part of the show about this funny 100%. Part of like consumer democracy, where like we think that like radio plays somehow reflect truths about society. Like, again, the Grammys is a very specific institution. They have their own institutional culture and their own institutional heritage. They're often and honestly, I mean, like, this is a classic Grammy thing, which is like an artist who should have won before and then edging out younger competitors when the Grammys like, oh man, we really like Beyonce deserves to have an Album of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, and like we don't know if that's what actually happened, but I think it is interesting though, going back to this thing about how like music, popular music or whatever, like can reflect society at large, because obviously we're seeing like politically like a lot of like oppression and suppression and erasure of like people's identities, and yet you see this Album of the Year list and it's like a wide swath of all like demographics in the US. And just I feel like it, not to get like super saccharine here, but I think it's kind of fucking cool, because it's like you can like whatever erase certain terms on like a government website, but like the fucking Grammys are still gonna come, and like music's still gonna be put out by like all these people you're trying to like suppress and like and all that. They're all still here. They're out here, they're making music, they're expressing themselves, and like
look, I think I really like that record. On the exact flip side of that, Saxon, what do you think about category 17, which sees really a depressing display of best rock album, won by the Rolling Stones, Hackney Diamond, over the Black Crowes, Green Day, Pearl Jam, Jack White, and then Idols and Fontaines DC, which I guess like are the same band.
No.
Are they not? What's the difference?
Well, I mean,
aren't they both like Irish guys shouting over post-punk?
Once like Fontaines DC is I feel like their roots are like the Smiths, and Idols is like stomping punk music.
So maybe I'm confused. Like, I thought those were the same band. Just see how much I care.
Well, best rock, rock music, our current state of rock music, our favorite punching bag. I mean, the fucking like,
it's brutal.
The exactly said the exact opposite of like, like Beyonce should have at this point won an Album of the Year, regardless if that's why they gave it to her or like because of the actual album, doesn't matter. She's talented. She's had a massive career. The Rolling Stones, the least on this list, they need a fucking best album.
Similarly, best rock performance, Now and Then by the Beatles. Like, Jesus Christ.
Like, who's accepting that award? What is was it like a fucking, but it is interesting to see that like Idols and like Fontaine DC like getting this level of like credit on like a pop level.
No, I mean a lot of this stuff is about Grammy voters, right?
Also, I'm most confused about is how who won best metal album?
Oh, Gojira did, dude.
Okay.
No, that's sick. So this is one of the ones where like, okay, so I think that there's like a Grammy voters is a long thing. They vote in a couple different categories. And a lot of times they'll have like one or two things they really know about. I don't actually know the limits, but like then they have categories where they don't know anything. And that is why like Bob Marley won the reggae album of the year again. Because
is that really how they do it? That's so interesting.
Yeah, so it's like the best reggae album of the year is it had both the Wailers and Bob Marley One Love music inspired by the film. And like the Bob Marley thing won.
So to be clear, these people are also like say voting on like the best rap performance and album. So for people who know nothing about rap or know about the beef that we mentioned earlier, we're like still probably voting for Kendrick.
Right. Well, but that's why the Gojira why the Gojira win for metal is interesting. So Gojira is a really good kind of like eco black metal band. But and this is the thing. Normally, kind of famously, the metal, and there are more people who know about metal, I think, but like oftentimes the metal winners are similarly like the bands everybody knows. So the nominees are for best metal performance are Gojira, Judas Priest, Knocked Loose featuring Poppy, get it guys, Metallica, and Spirit Box. And so like oftentimes you see that and you're going to be like, oh, they're going to vote for Metallica or they're going to vote for Priest. That Judas Priest album though is
it was actually a good album.
Incredible. It's unbelievably good. But Gojira opened the Paris Olympics.
Wow.
Right? And so everyone in the world saw Gojira. And so is that this recording might be from that Olympics opening ceremony. I'm not sure. I just love like rooting around. Like I'm fascinated by the institutional dynamics. I mean, the best rap album is great. Like Doechii winning.
Also, so it's also funny that we have best new age ambient or chant album, but then we have best children's music album, best comedy album, and the best comedy album, which I think is like is pretty funny because Dave Chappelle won. Who's also like funny enough, like obviously even for a comedian can be like pretty controversial in his like content. Yes. and so I don't know, it's like an interesting, like it's funny when you look at these winners, like you can like kind of put together like zero narrative.
It's like but like you get like the cultural hero. Sorry, you get like the cultural narratives of like different moments in time.
Jimmy Carter winning for best audiobook.
Get it, guy.
R.I.P. Leonard Bernstein winning probably yet another Grammy for best compilation soundtrack.
No, that was a compilation soundtrack for Leonard Bernstein, the movie about Leonard Bernstein.
Okay, Hans Zimmer also winning best score, who's probably never won one before. Just kidding. Okay, well, so let me ask you, like, do you feel like people, like, compared to the Oscars, do people like how much do people like care and pay attention to the Oscars and then go out and like watch that movie versus like any Grammy winner? Like, do you think that like Cowboy Carter's gonna get a bump from this, from like I don't know, my mom being curious about it or something.
I actually don't think Cowboy Carter is going to get a big bump. I think it's a really good question, and I think that kind of speaks to the difference of these creative industries. Maybe like film, like is still centralized enough. I feel like, and is far less fragmented than music listening, where you go to the movie theater and like you can see, like Moana 2. And you can also see The Brutalist, like, in the same day. Like, both of those are, and Wicked, like, all of those, and Red One, God help us, are all, like, okay. Oh, Red One is they kidnap Santa. It's like The Rock doing Santa.
Great.
It's great. Like, all of those are in the same place. And so there is this, like, mainstream, just because movies are so expensive to produce. And I feel like that's not true. Like, music is so fragmented by genre. Like, you can't go through and listen to all of the Grammy winners. I mean, you could, but like, or nominees. I mean, you could listen to like all the nominees for Album of the Year. But again, I don't think anyone would or does in the same way. Like, I know people who watch all of the like Oscar like everything that's movie of the year, right? Like,
yeah,
we just watch every Oscar nominated movie.
Right.
I have not, dear listener, listened to the Jacob Collier album, and I'm not gonna. And no one I know, or frankly can imagine, is going to, because he was nominated for Album of the Year. And I don't think that the like Chapel Roan fans are going to listen to New Blue Sun.
I looked up Jason Collier, and it just brought up like a basketball player.
Jacob. It's Jacob Collier.
Oh, Jacob. Sorry. Okay.
Now, what's funny is also, like, we could talk briefly about like the weirdest category, which is Best New Artist, right? This category recognizes an artist whose eligibility year releases achieved a breakthrough into the public consciousness and notably impacted the musical landscape. Like Khruangbin is there.
Yeah,
like,
I saw
feel like
that
they've
too.
been there like forever.
Like, I think they've been around for like 10, 15 years.
Yeah, they're like a very well established.
I know, I saw that too. Okay, but how about this one? This is also another one that I wonder if dear listener ever knew about. Best immersive audio album.
Wait. I bet you. Oh, wait, hold on. I bet you that is the Peter Gabriel record, that one.
It absolutely is.
Yeah, he's all about the immersive audio.
The description: for albums in any genre that provide a new immersive audio experience. What would that's so vague.
Okay, you know what my favorite is, though? Like, by far my favorite category?
What's that?
Best album notes.
Best album notes. Right. Because
Best album
notes don't even really exist anymore.
No, but like,
could we get a Grammy? I could get a Grammy. I'm a writer. I could by the end of this I could get a Grammy.
You could get a Grammy.
I one time wrote copy for Steel Pulse's website. True story.
I mean, like, you're on your way.
It's not on my resume, but maybe I should put it on there. Well, who won?
It was apparently, and again, this is the only category that I go to in order to learn about new music, is best album notes and best historical album. Like, apparently, there's an extremely good.
This actually looks sick.
Compilation that's the centennial of King Oliver's Creole Jazz Band and various artists. That's crucial. It's got Young Louis Armstrong, vital jump between vaudeville-styled blues into full jazz. Like, those are incredible records. And if they used AI, like modern engineering techniques, to clean them up, what a godsend that would be.
We'll be dropping a special episode where Sam reviews every track from Centennial King Oliver's Creole Jazz Band, various artists off of Archaeophone Records.
That's a good label, which I know about. I know about via the historical album category of the Grammys.
It looks like it is a that is a 4 LP collection. Hell yeah!
Diamonds and Pearls Super Deluxe Edition. Paul Robeson, Voice of Freedom.
That's good stuff.
Oh, the weird one there I'm interested in is what in God's name is the Sound of Music original soundtrack recording super deluxe edition? Like, like what are like? It's just like Julia Andrews being like in between, being like, God damn it.
Mono version, stereo version. Just what we all need. Okay, I think we're gonna put a pin on this episode. We hope you enjoyed our Grammy review as much as we enjoyed it. Times are a little rough out there in the world. I don't need to tell you that, and so we felt like maybe it was a good idea to kind of have a bit of a light 15 minutes to kind of just enjoy ourselves, which we suggest that you should do by going and listening to the deluxe edition of The Sound of Music.
But before we wrap, I have a gripe, Saxon. I have a gripe, and that gripe is that the album. This has been a banner year and banner decade for both new age and ambient music. I don't know what Chant album is. I am blown away.
If you are a chant aficionado, please.
I do not know what Chant is, but I do know what both new age and ambient music are. And like the lack of gentrification of that category blows my mind. Like the fact that like Andre 3K is not on that list,
or like Sarah Davachi,
or like all like I spent yesterday listening to like a computer program that like calculated dew point harmonics, with like there's wild ambient music out there. There's a ton of it, and like I went and listened to these records, and Saxon, they are rough. They are. I was like, oh yeah, ambient music is like new age is like cool. Like you wrote that article, which people should check out in the SF Observer, right?
SF Gate, yeah,
SF Gate about like original pieces of ambient records, like new age music. I was like, whoa, like I wonder what like modern new. It's not good. It is. It is like I like put it on. And I'm like, oh, I like am struggling with this. There's one that's got like kind of like trip hop. There's like a lot of, it's like, it's a very, I did not know that category existed, and the nominees are wild. And I like want to know like what the contemporary non-hipster new age ambient or chant industry that picked these records out, and like who are those people? What are those labels? Like what the deal is? I have not done this shred of research, but like it is fascinating.
And that is true. No, I think that's a good last point to make. And going through the last like 5 years of nominees, like there are no contemporary names, I guess. Okay.
They are contemporary, just not our contemporaries. Just not our contemporary Saxon.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's no this like kind of like there's none of the new wave of the new age.
Like that music was surprisingly tripped out.
Yeah. There's a lot of good stuff out there.
Get on it, Grammys. Get on it. This is my complaint.
And go listen to our episode about ambient music and its radical potentials. You'll probably need a lot of good ambient music to offset the news you'll be reading over the next 4 years. Music by Bird Language. We'll catch you again in a week. 2 weeks. We got an exciting next episode coming. Really great interview. Hopefully, fingers crossed, still locking it in. Never know.
It's talent, man. Talent's tough.
It's true. Catch you next time.